Hello and welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the 12th week of Friday Live at 5. I'm Peter McLaughlin. This is BlueSky Hypnosis. And today we are talking about what if your weight issues began in a past lifetime. So there's lots of cool stuff to talk about today. I want to encourage people, the people who are regulars who have been here before will already know this, so please pardon me. But for those of you who are new, or those of you who may have maybe tuned in once or twice, please be aware that the show, this broadcast, is so much better if you comment, if you ask questions. There are definitely things that you will think of that I haven't thought of, and it can take us in an entirely new direction. And it's honestly what makes this format so cool, so exciting for me. I mean, I love making videos for my channel and everything, but in the end, it's really just kind of static because it's just my thoughts, my imaginings. And when more people can put their thoughts, their inputs in the form of questions and comments, it certainly makes it much more lively. It makes it much more like a conversation rather than just like some kind of a lecture. And if you have ideas about future Lives at Fives, I think that's a weird way of saying it, please be sure that to send those to me either during this broadcast or later, at my email address, which is peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. So without further ado, I would like to talk about this concept of could your weight issues be related to a past lifetime? Now, this is where I begin to look when I'm working one-on-one with my clients, whether in my office, which, you know, in the last 3 months I haven't been able to do, everything's been online, or it's online, which I've done for a long time. Kind of a resistant weight loss issue. And if you think about it, lots of people have resistant weight loss issues. So there are quite a few people who are able to benefit significantly from my channel, my BlueSky Hypnosis channel on YouTube, by working with a lot of the tools that I have there. So I've got something like 120 videos. I think over 20, 25, 27, 28 videos are dedicated to weight loss. And a lot of those people are able to make significant progress just by listening to those tracks. Now, for people for whom those tracks may not be working, or for those people who've tried lots of different approaches and they haven't worked, we're now looking at kind of a resistant issue. So that's where I start thinking about problem solving, like where was this created in the first place? And that question, answering that question, in my experience, can often bring us into a past lifetime. So let's talk about like what is a past lifetime and how does that all work? And the way I would describe that is by answering the question of who are you? So I would say that you and I are not our physical bodies. We're no more our physical bodies than we are the automobiles, the cars that we drive to and from the store and work and whatnot. We have a car. It allows us to do things that we can't do without the car, but that's not who we are. And even if you were, I don't know, looking at the world from a satellite, you could imagine beings from another planet looking down and saying, well, those must be the organisms, those must be the entities, you know, the minivan and the two-door coupe and the 18-wheeler, and not really understanding that that's just a vehicle, right? That the real sentient being, if you will, is inside that vehicle. This is what I said to my kids when they were little. I said, you know, all those cars that you see around us on the road that are driving, those are the bodies. And the soul, or the spirit, is the person that's behind the wheel. And even if they go from a red two-door coupe to a white minivan, it doesn't mean it's a different soul or spirit. They're just in a different body. They're in a different vehicle. And I believe that that can sort of confuse us. Because we really start to identify so heavily with our external circumstances, especially with our body. And I think that one of the first important things to do when you're dealing with weight loss is to start recognizing who you really are. You aren't the body, you have a body. And if you get angry at the body for being heavier than you want it to be, or not looking as beautiful as you want it to look, or having extra rolls of skin somewhere, it's actually compounding the problem because you're releasing more adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. I've talked about that on other lives. I'm not going to go too deep into that today. So recognize that you are more of what, say, a religion would call a soul, or other people would call a spirit, an eternal being that has always been and always will be. When you begin to understand this, you begin to understand, wait a second, this is not my first rodeo. I've probably been here before, and I will probably come here again. So I put up this photograph up here, which looks like it's blocking my face a little bit. I put up this photo up here, and the part on the left, at least it's on my left, is people doing surgery. The reason I put that there, it has to do with NDE, or near-death experience. This is when a person in a medical setting has their heart stop beating and their brain stops having brain waves. In other words, flatlining. They're hooked up to these machines, and the machines are telling the physicians, this person at this moment is dead. Now that person could be clinically dead for 30 seconds, they could be dead for 3 minutes, or even 30 minutes. And about 40% of people who are in a clinical setting, who are clinically dead, as verified by these machines, will come back from that experience when they're revived, like using a defibrillator, and they'll describe a period of consciousness that occurred for them while they were clinically dead. Now, science says, I don't know how this can happen. Maybe it's the last gasps of a dying brain. They really can't figure it out. And I think they can't figure it out because I think really science, medicine, basically thinks that we are our bodies. We are our brains. They don't, I don't think, really accept that we are consciousness, pure consciousness, and that we are temporarily housed inside a body. So this is just to give you kind of a background of how it's possible that you could experience past lifetimes. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is basic problem solving. So I talked about, a resistant issue, and today we're talking about weight loss. So a person has tried all these different diets, they've tried going to the gym, they've tried going to see a psychotherapist for a long period of time, nothing seems to be working. This is when I start to think, okay, what is the root of this problem? And I put up the picture of a car mechanic because I think car mechanics do basic problem solving. In other words, you bring your car to a car mechanic because smoke is coming out of the engine, out of the hood. The car is making weird noises, and the mechanic's job is to listen to those symptoms, and then in their mind start to think, all right, well, it could be A, it could be B, it could be C, it could be Q, it could be Z. And then the next thing they do is they lift up the hood of the car and they start going deeper into the engine, into the bowels of the engine, until they can find the part that has gone bad, the hose that is cracked, that is spewing some kind of fluid on something hot and smoke is coming out. Now, the other approach would be, well, we don't know what's causing the smoke coming out of the engine of your car, but we can install a fan to blow it away. Now, we'd all think that that was absolutely ludicrous. And yet that sadly seems to happen to a lot of people, especially with chronic issues that go on and on and on. Today we're talking about weight loss. So my way of thinking is I always want to find out, where is the origin point of what my client is dealing with? Where did these weight issues, where were they created for the first time? And I don't want to get tripped up with the beginning, with the restarting or an iteration of a pattern. In other words, what I have actually found on many occasions working with people is that doing hypnotic regression or using a pendulum, we found out that their weight issues began at the age of 9 years old. But in some cases, that quote-unquote beginning is really in parentheses because they had a dream, for example, and the dream was of a past lifetime, and the past lifetime is where those weight issues actually began for the very first time. Now, clearly, that's what we would want in that case to deal with. We would want to deal with exactly what caused this in the first place, because that is driving the show. The next piece that is critical to understand is the role of the subconscious mind. So you have a conscious mind, you have a subconscious mind. The conscious mind represents about 3%. That's 3% of your brain's processing power. It is literally like the tip of the iceberg, the part that we can see that is above the surface of the ocean. The vast majority, the overwhelming vast majority of that iceberg is beneath the surface. That part that's beneath the surface is your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind controls, among many other things, your autonomic nervous system. So among many of your body's systems, including immune system and reproductive system and endocrine system, it's also regulating your digestive system. It is the province, the realm, the house of all of your emotions. And every decision you make, even if it seems like a rational, logical decision, is in fact, at its core, an emotional decision that then you layer in the rational, logical reasons why you're taking that course of action. So the role of the subconscious mind is to protect you. Last week, was it last week or the week before? I think it was the week before last. We were talking about self-sabotage, that concept of self-sabotage. And for those of you that were in on that Friday Live at 5, you will recall that I made the assertion it's actually not sabotage, it's actually protection. So your conscious mind wants to go in this direction. Your subconscious mind takes you in this direction through things like emotional eating, and you say, I'm sabotaging myself. And I say, you're not sabotaging yourself. Your subconscious mind thinks it's dangerous to go in that direction and thinks it's safe to go in this direction. And so you have this conflict on the inside that feels like sabotage, but it's not. And so you get mad and angry at yourself and so forth. Another important reframe is to understand whatever part of me is creating this is doing it for my protection. Now, the reason for the protection may be long out of date. It may be something that happened when you were a child and now you're in your 40s. It may be something that actually happened in a past lifetime and now you're living in this lifetime. But to the subconscious mind, which has no conception of time, it still thinks you're in danger. So it's going to keep pushing you in this direction. All right, so I want to talk about some cases that I've run across in my practice with the different people that I've worked with. And I kind of pulled two out of the musty files in the attic of my brain, if you will. And actually, before we go into those, I'm just going to see if there are any questions here, because I see some people are commenting, but I don't know if there are any questions yet. So I'll just check this out real quick. Great analogies. Okay, thanks. Here we go. Legal Eagle 44. Good to see you here, Legal Eagle. Peter, are diets the equivalent of installing a fan to resolve a smoking car? That is a really interesting question. And that's an example of something that I never thought about before, but I would say yes, 100%, that's correct. Let me give you some kind of a sound that I have here. How about a little triangle? I think that is 100% true. Diets, I think, can be the equivalent of installing a fan to blow away smoke in a car that is smoking. So for some people, presumably diets work. And I don't just mean in a temporary sense, but they work for them in a long-term sense. And that's probably because there isn't some other powerful emotion underneath the surface that's driving them in the direction of acquiring and keeping on excessive weight. Does that make sense? So let's say for sure, I think you're correct, but you know, for those people that fall into the category of they just need a little bit of help with eating the right kinds of food at the right time in the right quantities, and they don't have a deeper emotion underneath it. In my practice, the people I see are people that are coming to me because they've been struggling with this for their whole life. Usually, I mean, why else would they come to a hypnotist? That's not going to be the first stop, I guarantee you. They're going to be trying diets, they're going to be going to the gym, they're going to be talking to their friends, they're going to be talking to their physician, they're going to talk to a nutritionist, and so forth, right? I'm going to be kind of the last stop on the train. So for me, that's probably 100% true. In the general population, it's probably, I would just be totally guessing at the number, but I'm going to say 70%, 80% of the people that would probably apply to. But excellent point. Thank you for making that. Let's see if there's something else here. Revital Sela. What about a person whose weight loss started after getting a very high dosage of steroid therapy? whose weight loss started. I'm gonna guess you mean whose weight gain started after getting a very high dosage of steroid therapy. In that case, if there are hormones, sort of artificial, external hormones, chemicals, I'd have to walk down the road of it's the chemical, it's the hormone coming in from the outside until proven otherwise. That, I think, would make the most sense to me. And sadly, most modern procedures have side effects. I think that's a known side effect of steroids. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm certainly not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a hypnotist and a life coach. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt. But my understanding is that is a side effect of steroid therapy, and that's probably the reason. The steroid therapy is probably the reason for the weight gain. So thank you for that. Here, Nicole Wright. Nicole Wright says, how do we reprogram our subconscious? All right, so that's why you're here today, and we're definitely going to be talking about that. And why don't I just jump into it now? Sounds like a good idea. I'm going to give myself a little triangle for that. Okay. So I say, because I try to make everything simple for myself, the world and the universe is complex enough, and sometimes it takes me years to boil things down to a level that is like stupid simple for me to understand and for me to communicate. So how do we reprogram our subconscious? I say step number one is you find the root of the problem, because you didn't always have the problem. You may have had it your entire lifetime, this lifetime, but you didn't have it in the lifetime before this one, or the one before that, or the one before that, or the one before that. And that's what we're talking about today. We go back to the precise moment at which no problem, problem. You're going to find a trauma right there between those two sort of tectonic plates. Right in the middle is going to be a trauma. That trauma caused the issue to begin. So we want to find that, and then we want to resolve it. What does that mean to resolve it? Well, we'll be getting into that a little bit more with these case studies today, but basically what it means is finding a way of neutralizing or healing the trauma. So that could involve forgiveness. It could involve asking to be forgiven. It could involve bringing in a different capability into that moment and replaying the moment. It could involve understanding if there was a higher purpose to experiencing that trauma. These are all ways that we could theoretically, case by case, use to neutralize or to heal the original, it's called the original sensitizing event, the origins of that original trauma. So you've got this spiky thing deep inside of you that's on fire. We want to put the fire out. We want to file down the spikes and maybe even take that object out, and out it goes, and fill that area now, that void, with something that is light, that is loving. Step number two is we would want to flood your subconscious mind with the thoughts that are like seeds that you would put in a garden. And the more we flood your subconscious mind with these positive, loving, life-affirming thoughts, the more some of those thoughts, some of those seeds actually take root and begin to grow into something big and strong and beautiful. The opposite of what the old thing was, which was dark and negative and threatening. And then step number three is we want some way of, on an ongoing basis, to maintain this state of being so that you don't slide back to the old way. Because even if the old trauma is sort of neutralized and healed, which is always our goal, there always may be a kind of proclivity to slide back to that old way of being, even if the pull is not as strong as it used to be. So just think of like going to a gym. You start working with the fitness trainer at the gym. That's kind of like me. I'm like a mental skills coach or a mental trainer. And you really work hard and you're sweating and you're going there 3 or 4 times a week, and you get your body over time to the way you want it to be. There's not one fitness trainer on the planet that would say, well, that's all done for you. You can go home, never touch a weight again. No, you would have to move into some kind of a maintenance phase that might not be as intense as the original part, but in order to keep your body the way you want it, you would need to keep using your body. So I talk about this maintenance phase as being, it could be 15 minutes a day. It could be a subliminal track that you listen to while you sleep a few times a week, but it keeps you inside the lanes, you know, so that you don't slide back to that old way of being. So thanks for the question, and I hope that made sense to you. All right, lots of questions in here, which is awesome. Thank you. And I should probably put on these glasses just so I can read these things. Okay, Gia Girl, she says, I saw Dr. Phil and he had a 400-pound man on there who lost 400 pounds and gained it back and more. He said right when he got there, he wanted his jacket back on and no more attention anymore. Okay, so I know everybody's typing fast, but I'm assuming he wasn't 400 pounds, he lost 400 pounds, making him 0 pounds. I'm sure that wasn't the case. It was probably like he lost several hundred pounds. And he gained the weight back, and he said he didn't want the attention. Something about he didn't want the attention, and I'm assuming that's the reason why he gained back all that weight. I hope I got that right. That makes perfect sense to me, because here's the key. This may be the big important takeaway from today, and that is, if you don't resolve the underlying cause, if you don't resolve the underlying reason that's fueling the symptoms, then of course the symptoms are going to come back. You know, if this man had a deep subconscious need not to be recognized, in other words, to be able to hide, and in order to, let's say, because I don't know him, let's just make it up, in order to feel safe. And by losing all the weight, he got all of this attention, and now things were being asked of him, things were being demanded of him, things were happening that created extreme discomfort for him, that another person might say, oh, this is what I've always wanted. Then his subconscious mind is going to make sure that those unpleasant, uncomfortable circumstances change so he can feel safe again. Even if by being safe, he's 400 pounds and putting tremendous stress on his cardiovascular system, shortening his life, not being able to, you know, do the things that maybe he would otherwise want to do. And I'm gonna pretty much guarantee you that whatever he did to lose those 400 pounds did not include resolving the original reason why he gained so much weight in the first place. So thank you so much for pointing that out about this Dr. Phil show, because I think it really does illustrate something absolutely crucial, and it brings us right back to the role of the subconscious mind. The role of the subconscious mind is to keep you safe. And that's a pretty powerful motivator, right? If you want to look good, you know, so that you can meet a partner and go on dates, if you want to be lighter so that you can go water skiing and feel free, that's not as powerful an emotion as preserving your life. So that's a really important thing to consider, right? Especially when we're looking at these resistant cases of weight loss. So thank you very much for pointing that out. Okay, so here's Eternal Optimist. I've been on diet since I was 18 months old. 18 months old. Oh, and nothing works. Well, I mean, I'd be curious as to know why you were put on a diet at 18 months old. Why you're assuming your caloric intake was restricted at 18 months old. I gotta say, the first thing that pops into my mind, and again, please take it for whatever it's worth, grain of salt, I'm not a doctor, not a psychologist, I'm a life coach and a hypnotist, is maybe what's deeper in your subconscious mind is there's not enough. You know, if for sure at 18 months old, you were having your calories restricted and you were hungry and your caregivers weren't giving you enough, that seems like a potential for the subconscious mind to take on this belief that you better get the food while it's available because we don't want you to starve to death. I'm not saying this is what's going on for you. I couldn't possibly know that. I'm just saying that is what comes to me based on the one sentence that you wrote. But in any case, we would want to figure out what is at the root of this. Where was this created and why was it created? So thanks for writing that in. Doreen, you're back. Good to see you, Doreen. I started 2 weeks ago intermittent fasting with Hypnosis nightly. Fantastic. And I think you wrote something else here. Pop that off, and I don't know what it says here, but I'll just put it up. 20-hour fast and, eating window, 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. Yeah, I mean, this works really, really well for a lot of people. And I love that you're combining it with hypnosis. So there's a guy on YouTube, I want to give him a plug because I think he's got a great channel. I think he's helped a lot of people. His name is Dr. Eric Berg, B-E-R-G. And he's got thousands of videos. He focuses intensely on intermittent fasting, keto, weight loss. And I think he does, to my way of thinking, he does a great job and really amazing comments that are coming in from that physiological perspective. I would say that's 2 legs of a 3-legged stool. The calories in, calories out. I think, Doreen, it's really smart and intelligent on your part to combine the psychological piece with this, because actually I feel like that could potentially offer the best possible avenue for people. I have clients who, in addition to working with me, they might be working with a nutritionist, they might be working with a strength and conditioning coach at a gym, they might be working with some other kind of weight loss specialist that covers the food and exercise part, those 2 legs of the stool, and then we work on the third one, which is the mental part, and everything is mind. All the decisions you make in your life are flowing from your mind, even the ones you don't want to make, the emotional eating, the mindless eating, and so forth. So I think that's a really, really intelligent approach, and thanks for commenting. Okay, so next question, yes. Do you have ideas about pain coming from living with, I'm going to say, with a narcissist? Okay, so what you're describing here is you're describing, and I love it looks like some kind of Middle Eastern characters up there that I can't possibly read, but they're beautiful. You're describing pain, right? You're describing pain that is coming from a relationship. And any kind of pain can drive overeating as a compensatory mechanism for dealing with that pain. So I think lots of us will use food as the way other people might use alcohol, or might use drugs, or might use gambling, or might use shopping, or scores of other methods that we as humans use to distract ourselves from pain. So if you're having pain in your relationship, then could that be causing or contributing to overeating? I would say yes. I would say yes. I don't think we're supposed to be in pain as human beings. So thank you for asking the question. And Doreen is just saying how well she's adjusting to all of this. I think she means adjusting to the intermittent fasting and to listening to hypnosis, which is awesome. Way to go, Doreen. Somebody's here from Switzerland, and then Gia girl, come on, where are you? There we go. I started listening to you a few weeks ago and lost a little bit, but right when I started listening to you, my cycle came, and well, that threw everything off. The cravings because of the cycle. Okay, so the cycle is obviously gonna affect your hormones, right? Hormones can affect your emotions, and the emotions, it might have been just enough, it sounds like, to tip you, from being on this track where you're inside the lines to the other side. Well, it's going to be interesting once the cycle passes. and now you've got another 3 weeks or so of being in a different state to see where you are then. And then what happens, the next month when the cycle comes back? Is it the same as before, or is it less intense? It may be that as you start to gain more traction on this new way of being, that when the cycles come, it doesn't hit you as hard. So, I'm a man. What the hell do I know about this? But I would say that if I didn't get enough sleep, for example, or I was really upset or angry about something, then a program that I'm on, a way of thinking, is going to be slightly adjusted or out of balance, and it may be harder for me to stay on that program. Now, once I get past that stress, once I get enough sleep, or once I'm not angry anymore, then maybe it's easier for me to get back on that path. And again, as human beings, the longer you're on a path, the more you have inertia working for you rather than working against you. So thanks for that. I want to jump into one of these cases that I made little screens for here to help remind me. All right, so let's do this one first. All right, so I was working with a client a few years ago, and her main issue was weight loss. Tried everything, nothing was working. We got that the root of her weight gain problems was in a past lifetime. We went into the past lifetime, and she saw herself, felt herself, could smell things inside of a cave. And she said that she was maybe like late teens, early 20s, maybe 19 or 20 years old, 21. And there were 6 small children with her. Excuse me. And she was in charge of caring for these children. And I asked her, "Are these children yours?" And she said immediately, "No, I'm taking care of them." "Why are you in the cave?" "Because our village has been attacked." And I think she could see the smoke in the distance from the mouth of the cave where the village was being burned to the ground. Everyone was being killed. And she was somehow able to gather up these children, I think it was about 6, and run away and find shelter in this cave. And the problem was they didn't have any food. And she was helpless. She was crying, sitting in the chair in my office. She was crying, and she was describing how helpless she felt because one by one, the children started to die. And there was nothing she could do, and they were asking for her help, and she couldn't help them. And then she ended up dying of starvation. And so in this lifetime, her subconscious mind wasn't going to allow that to happen again. So we had to heal, we had to neutralize that incident. And so now I can talk directly about how we did it in this case, which may help that earlier question you had about, how do you reprogram your subconscious mind? So how did we heal this horrific wound? The guilt that this woman was feeling from a previous lifetime when she was the only adult, the only source of care for these small children. And due to these circumstances, through no fault of her own, she could not feed them. She couldn't even feed herself, and she died. In this case, it really was about forgiveness. So everything's happening inside her mind, right? So we brought the children, the spirits of the children, to her past life self to the same place. So we call it a sacred space. And for you, it might be on the banks of a river. For someone else, it could be in the desert. Another person, it could be on an ocean beach. You get the idea. So we had client in this sacred space, in this beautiful place, with their spirit guide. And there's more live at 5s where we talk about spirit guides. I'll be talking about them more in the future. But it's basically like a wise, loving teacher in the spirit realm. And then we had the past life self, the young woman come, did some work with her. Then we had the children come. And the children forgave her for all of that. They said to her, there was nothing you could do They said to her, this was part of our path. They said to her, we love you because you did everything you could for us. And there's no reason to hold on to this guilt anymore. It's time to forgive yourself. Which, once that happened, once the children said this to her, she was able to forgive herself. And once the past life person forgave herself, once she was whole and complete, we had her integrate with the present self so she could feel more whole and more complete. I hope this helps to understand, like, not just finding the origin of the problem, which we certainly did, but most importantly, what you do then. How do you deal with something like this tremendous burden of guilt from something so intense like that scene that unfolded in the cave in the past lifetime? So I hope that kind of helps in terms of understanding all that. I'm going to go back and see if there are any questions here. Kimberly Wansky, I've been doing the permanent weight loss one, the RAIN, for almost a month. I have lost 23 pounds, only 77 pounds to go. Awesome, Kim. That deserves a round of applause. Congratulations. And as I say to other people when they talk about their success stories, the thing that I love most about the success stories is it is an inspiration to other people. There are other people on this broadcast right now. Somebody, we don't know, may benefit from what you just said there. They may say, if she can do it, so can I. There may be people that come to this broadcast later because it's saved sort of as long as YouTube wants to save it as a permanent piece of content. Someone may come across your statement, and that may be just what they need, that little bit of motivation, that little bit of social proof that helps them say, you know what, I'm going to embark on this too, because if it worked for Kimberly, it's going to work for me too. So thank you for calling that out, bringing that to everyone's attention. And I think it's important that we celebrate our successes. Lord knows we have plenty of times in life when we have setbacks, right? And if we ignore our successes and we fixate on our setbacks, it's going to create the emotional and psychological conditions to have even more setbacks. So I think it's really good, it's really important when you have a success, when you see something working, that you acknowledge that in some way. So thank you for doing that. Let's see here. Okay, so Chandra Lagardia said that she lost about 75 pounds with the help of weight loss surgery. And then she added to that with another comment where she said, but since dating my boyfriend, I have gained half of that back. Is happy weight really a thing? Not feeling as happy, laugh out loud. Okay, so if you're not happy about gaining that back, then I have a hard time imagining that the correct term for what happened is really happy weight. Is it because you feel relaxed and comfortable? Maybe. Is there some other reason there? So I don't really know. I mean, because I don't know you. But I think you can rest assured that there is an underlying psychological, emotional reason why you have gained that weight back. I mean, the first thing I would say is that when you had the surgery presumably didn't also cut out the emotional reason why you were overweight. And therefore, if you never address the root cause, it makes sense to me that at some point it would just come right back. Now, did it come back because you got together with your boyfriend? Or did it come back for some other reason? If it came back because of your boyfriend, why is that? Are you subconsciously attempting to, in the vernacular, sabotage that relationship? Because on some level you don't want that to work out? Because you, for a variety of reasons, right? You might not feel safe. It might feel like you don't deserve that. Who knows? It could be a variety of things. Or is there some other reason? So, getting back to my original point, I would want to know what is the root cause of gaining back that weight. Now, I have a video on my channel, BlueSky Hypnosis on YouTube, which teaches you how to use a pendulum. If you just go to my channel and just type in pendulum, it'll teach you how to use this thing, this pendulum, where you can ask your subconscious mind questions. So you might start with that and ask your subconscious mind questions as to why you've gained back the weight. You know, the other thing is that your subconscious mind may think, and it may be true, that he's more attracted to me at that weight. You know, we are happier at that weight, or he's happier, even though your conscious mind says, I don't like the way I look at that weight. Another part of you may think you're actually more appealing, more beautiful at that weight. So these are all things you can consider when you use the pendulum. So in any event, thanks for posting that up there. And welcome if this is your first time. I didn't recognize your name, so welcome if it's your first time. Here's one from Hi Dollar Honey. I like that name. Hi Dollar Honey. Happened to me. I'm pretty sure I know mine. Sexually abused at 6. Oh, I'm so sorry. God, it's ridiculous how many people this happens to. That's when it started. Wanted to be thin, but when I get thin, I don't feel safe because everyone wants to just have sex. All right, so you know exactly why this phenomenon is occurring this way. And it's occurring this way, it sounds like, for protection. And this is, I think most people understand this, especially for women. This is very common, especially for women who've been abused at any time in their life, when they were children, when they were adults. The subconscious mind, as I said before, its main job is to protect you. And if it says, you know, when you're larger, these unwanted advances, this abuse does not occur, then how do you overcome that? How do you just say, oh, I'm just going to go on this diet. I'm just going to go to this gym. Why wouldn't that be a yo-yo situation where the subconscious mind's like we're not having that. That's not okay. I mean, you look thin and beautiful and sexy. That's not okay, because that's dangerous. That deeper motivation for self-preservation coming from your subconscious mind is way more powerful. So I would suggest in your case that what needs to be healed, what needs to be resolved at a minimum, is that abuse that occurred when you were 6 years old. God, 6 years old. That it has to be resolved. Now, could there be a past life component to this? Could this be something that is a recurring theme? Yeah, that's possible. I'm not saying it is because I have no way of knowing, but it's possible. The other thing it could be is there karma involved? Karma is the law of cause and effect. Did you harm someone in a past lifetime, and now you're harmed in this lifetime in order to learn that lesson of what that's all about? Again, I'm not saying that's what it is at all, but that would be another example of where a past life could be germane. So thank you for writing that in. It really illustrates that point, and you're definitely not alone. There are sadly too many people, women especially, who have gone through this. So my heart goes out to you for sure. And resolving that earlier trauma, really important. You know, I based on the content I have on my channel, I might direct you to working with a track that deals with meeting with your spirit guide. The spirit guide is like a kind, loving, wise teacher or mentor. And meeting with that guide may help you to begin resolving some of that pain that you're carrying around with you. Hopefully that helps you. But thank you for commenting. Okay, here's Nicole Wright. She writes, is personal trauma something we can discover with one of your tracks, or is it something that would be more individualized? That's a great question, and it's an awesome question, and part of my answer I've wrestled with for a long time. So my tracks that pertain to past lives, past life regression, and so forth, and I've got a handful of those would take you to personal traumas that occurred in a past lifetime. They're not specifically designed to bring you to a trauma from your present lifetime. What I've wrestled with is I could make a track that would take people back to a trauma in their present lifetime, but I've been a little squeamish about doing that because I think the connection is just too close. Between your ego and your psyche of today and something that happened to you in this lifetime. It feels a little too close to me to do on a sort of generic removed audio track that's just floating out there in the world. That's definitely something that at least up until this point and as far forward as I can see, I would want to work one-on-one with somebody to resolve those traumas because it is so personal and it can be so intense. And I'm not saying a past life trauma can't be intense, that absolutely can be, but there is still that bit of distance because when you do a past life regression, it's kind of like there's two screens in front of you. One is, it's the here and now, your name and your body and where you are in your bedroom or whatever. And then this screen is the past life. And as you go through this one begins to kind of recede a little bit and the other one gets bigger. But this one never entirely goes away. So you always know, no matter where you are in a past lifetime or what's happening, part of you always knows because of that other screen that you are safe. You're lying in your own bed and you are you. And it's like dreaming while you're awake, if that makes sense. So yeah, that thing about the trauma, I haven't wanted to make one about a present life trauma. That just seems a little bit too intense, but it's something that I do all the time when I work one-on-one with people. The other thing I will say is about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, somebody wrote in, I believe it was on a subliminal track that I have for weight loss. And one of the things that I repeat over and over again on this subliminal track, that subliminal just means below your conscious level to hear it while you're sleeping, right? Your conscious mind is still absorbing all of these messages. And one of the messages on there is, it's safe for you to release the old weight now. And this person had a nightmare. And the nightmare took her to the origin of her weight gain issues in her present life. That was some trauma that she had with someone else in her family. And she recognized that the track actually brought this up out of her psyche. Now, it wasn't because I said, go to a trauma earlier in your present life, because I said, I don't feel comfortable doing that. But just saying, it's safe for you to release the old weight now was enough for her subconscious mind to lift this up in the form of a dream or a nightmare, bring her attention to it, and now she knows, hey, I need to resolve that thing. So that's just another example of how this can happen, even if it's not intended, because the subconscious mind can say, here's this opportunity to fix something, a long-standing issue. I'm gonna grab that right now. So thank you for your comment, or your question. I wanna go to another example, another case from people that I've worked with in the past, and let's just take this cave one down and put up this boat, this riverboat. So working with another female client on weight loss, and she goes to the banks of a river. She's poor, and she's I think either kind of a sort of a normal healthy weight or maybe even thin, and she's a waitress, and she's working at a picnic. So a paddle boat, like an old paddle boat, like this thing that's in the picture, had pulled up to a dock along the riverbank. And all these extremely wealthy people dressed in their finery had come off this paddle boat onto the banks of the river where tables were set up, where they had this beautiful picnic, this beautiful feast. And she's working this thing, and doesn't have much money, and she's feeling a sense of despair. She's feeling like she's not good enough. And she's comparing herself to all these rich people. Some are plump, because they've got plenty of food, and they're all dressed in these beautiful, as I say, in this beautiful finery and the jewelry and everything else. And then they all leave laughing and drinking, and they get back on the paddle boat, and the paddle boat steams off into the distance, and she's left, cleaning up their mess. And she's noticing how much waste there is, and she starts eating that food. And for her, what was driving her subconscious mind was the need to feel significant. She wanted to feel like her life was important, like she is important. And her subconscious mind associated having lots of food to eat, having the body get larger, with being able to be seen, with being important, with being meaningful, with being significant. And that's what was driving this for her. So in the healing process of her past life self, we had to find ways of helping the past life self feel important, feel significant, which is always going to come down at its extreme to love, to feeling like she's worthy of love, worthy of receiving love, worthy of giving love, worthy of feeling love even if there's no one in the room. For many people, this can be a connection if they are people of faith. It could be a connection to God. You know, for other people, it can feel, you know, the way they feel when they're with their beloved pets. But it's creating these feelings inside of themselves of love that are not dependent upon the outside. And when filled with these feelings of love, the food and the need to feel significant, well, I already feel significant, so the food doesn't do the same thing for me anymore, so it's easier not to overindulge, not to need to make my body, you know, larger than is what is healthy for me. So hopefully that one makes sense to you guys too. Let's see if there are other questions. And I'll put this down and put up my question. Where's that one? There it is. There it is. That's my dog. He's encouraging people to ask questions. I'm just scanning through here, so please bear with me. I'm trying to go to people that I haven't answered questions today. So MH says, hello MH. I had a bit of a health scare when I was on top of my weight, and it spiraled into, I suppose, self-protection, whereby exercising kind of scared me. Yeah, all right, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if you know, once bitten, twice shy. The subconscious mind also has a way of linking things together. It can link all kinds of phenomena with danger. You know, if a person's in a car accident, they might obviously be afraid of getting into a car again. Or if they were in a bad car accident and it was a small sports car, they may not want to get into a small sports car again. Believe it or not, it could even be the color. So anytime they encounter that color, that feeling comes back to them, which is kind of, if you think about it, for those of you who have, you know, had Psychology 101, studied Pavlov, or a Pavlovian response, or a Pavlov's dog. And in the case of Pavlov's dog, the scientist, Ivan Pavlov, was able to condition the dog by giving the dog meat powder and at the same time ringing a bell. And then at some point after a period of conditioning, all the scientist had to do was ring the bell and the dog would salivate. Because these two stimuli had been linked together in the dog's mind. So for you, it sounds like almost a Pavlovian connection whereby exercising is now linked with this horrible health scare. Could be linked in your mind with death. That's a pretty powerful motivator to not exercise. So in your case, we would probably want to go back to the health scare, right? Because it's almost like there's an earlier version of you. Now this could be 6 months ago, it could be 6 years ago, it could be 6 lifetimes ago. But it's like this earlier version of you is alive inside of you, and she has, or he has, his or her needs. It's like they're still scared, or they're still walking around in a state of shame. So we would want to go to her in your consciousness, in your mind, and basically set her at ease back in that moment. Help her feel like her life is not threatened. Then reintegrate her with you. And then step 2, flood your mind with the messages to your subconscious mind that you are safe to do certain kinds of exercises. And just to be right on point with things, we would want you to talk to your doctor and have your doctor say, yeah, it's safe for you to do this kind of exercise, this one, this one, this one, stay away from this one, this one, and this one. So the programming would be, you're safe to do the following kinds of exercises. And keep repeating that in many different ways over and over again so that your subconscious mind can really invest in and fully embody the new belief system that it's safe, not just safe, but it's actually healthier for you to exercise. Because this will, if done properly, will actually extend your life. It'll extend the quality of your life. Does that make sense? So thank you for commenting there. Let's see. Here's Vic. Vic says, do you get the same benefits from hypnosis doing sessions virtually with you? I'm based in NY. So I'm based in NY too, Vic. I mean, I don't know if you're in New York City or somewhere else in New York State. I'm in upstate New York, but yes, you definitely get the same benefits by doing sessions virtually. I have clients that I have never actually met in person. It doesn't seem to interrupt or interfere with this process at all. I've been doing virtual sessions for about 4 years. I've got clients that, like professional athletes, where they're in town for part of the year and then they're out of town for the rest of the year. And so when they're in town, we work one-to-one in my office. When they're not here, we work virtually over Zoom. So yeah, great question. And yes, I haven't noticed any kind of, see if I pronounce this word right, diminution. I haven't noticed any diminishment of working virtually versus working face-to-face. And that's actually surprising to me. I think my inclination at the beginning was, well, you'd have to be face-to-face for it to be as effective, and that's just simply not true. And I've done it enough now, especially now with this the situation of the last 3 or 4 months where everything has been online, to know that it's perfectly effective to do that. And in some ways, for some people, it's actually more efficient. And it gives you more options because you can choose people that are not necessarily within a 20-mile radius of you. I mean, it really expands your options. So thanks for the question. Ambrose Girl just is musing, saying, I wonder if that's why I have troubles with weight loss. It could be. It's very likely that even if it's not a past lifetime, that something happened at an earlier moment in time, probably a trauma, and that's probably where the weight gain issues began. Now, I don't know if you were on the broadcast a little while ago when I talked about a pendulum, but I have a video on my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. And guys, by the way, I want to plug the channel. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, this is on top of the dog. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel. That'll put my content, when I produce new content, into your feed. If you click the little bell notification icon, anytime I produce any new content, you'll be alerted right away. So please feel free to do that. But in any event, look up the video I have on using a pendulum, P-E-N-D-U-L-U-M, pendulum. It'll teach you how to use this, and you can use this as a tool to sort of pinpoint or identify for yourself where this problem began. And that could really help you on the road to reversing all of this. So good luck with that. Let's see, Gia Girl says, ironic that fattening foods taste so much better than healthier foods, but they make you medically ill and overweight or obese. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to agree with that, unless everything else is in line. Everything else is in balance. So if I plugged Dr. Eric Berg before, he's got a channel on YouTube. He talks a lot about keto and about intermittent fasting. And what he talks about is how the body is desperate for high quality fat. And we've been inculcated with this idea that fat is bad for you. And just as an aside, if anyone has read the children's book, Charlotte's Web, in that book, Charlotte's Web, the farmer talks about fattening up the pig, And the way the farmer fattens up the pig is by giving the pig skim milk. So it sounds counterintuitive that eating something low fat would cause you to lose weight, and eating something that has high fat would cause you to gain weight, but it's actually the reverse. And we've been told that eating low fat is the way you lose weight. If you're interested in this, watch Dr. Eric Berg. He does a great job of describing this. He talks about how the body is desperate for fat, high quality fat, like avocados, for example. And if you don't get that high quality fat, it's still out there looking for it. And that one of the ways that you can curb your urge to eat is to make sure your body has adequate amounts of high quality fats. Having said that, there's no question but that manufacturers, food manufacturers, are hijacking our neurology with things like processed sugar, for example, putting it in all kinds of stuff like in ketchup and in soup and everything because it's addictive, and then we want to eat more of it. So you really got to, if you want to get control of this, those three legs of the stool. So, the calories in, what are you eating? What is the quality of that food? When are you eating it? In what quantities are you eating it? Calories out would be, are you moving your body? And I don't think you have to go and do crazy things at the gym, but I think we're supposed to be moving our bodies. And then the third leg of the stool is the psycho-emotional part. I think that's the most important one, but it certainly doesn't mean that the other two legs of the stool aren't important either. All three legs are, or else the stool is going to tip over. Here's Rana. When you work with a client, do you work through the resolve healing process? Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. Yes. So when I was trained as a volunteer EMT, we were taught, and I was a firefighter EMT in Connecticut. Here in New York, I'm on leave of absence as just a plain firefighter. And when I lived in Connecticut, there were lots of motor vehicle accidents. And when you go to somebody who's been injured, let's say in a motor vehicle accident, they could be, lying on the street. The first thing that you're going to do sort of medically, after you're sure that, a power line's not going to fall on them, or they're not in the lane of traffic, or they're not lying down in a pool of gasoline, is you're going to a rapid assessment involves palpating, and everyone's had the doctor, push and prod on you. And then when you go, ouch, you realize, oh, there's something going on in that area. So the first step for us is what I would call emotional palpation, in talking about what you've been dealing with. And as we get deeper into the conversation, often, we hit things that are painful, tears come. Then we find, through various methods, we find the origin of when this was all created in the first place, earlier in this life or in a past life. And then step number 2, which was step number 2 as an EMT, now that you've found this issue with this person, they've got a broken patella, or they've got a broken femur, now you got to do something about it. You can't just go, well, they got a broken patella, they got a broken femur, write it down on a piece of paper and walk away. No, you need to do something about it. So yes, I always, with my clients, that's the whole point of this, is to not just identify the problem, but to work it through to resolution. So thank you very much for asking that question and giving me an opportunity to clarify that, or clear it up, or whatever I just did. Thank you. Let's see. Here's another good one. Zardozomania. How many sessions would you suggest for weight loss hypnotism? What I always suggest to anybody who's interested, who wants to work with me, is you just sign up for the first session. It's 90 minutes. It's kind of a deep dive into you. We talk about hypnosis, how we resolve things for you. And if we have time, we actually start some of the work. We often will use the pendulum as our first step with the work. In that 90 minutes, you're going to have a much better idea. If I'm somebody that you want to work with, if you believe in everything we've just talked about, if things are starting to make more sense to you, I'm going to have a better sense of you, and we're both going to have a better sense of what you might need going forward, because we never really know for sure. But what I kind of know is, oh, this is a pretty complicated one, or this one is pretty straightforward. Plus, there's also financial considerations. So I always, to repeat, advise people, just sign up for the 90-minute one. You're not obligated for anything after that. You can say after the 90 minutes, thanks so much, have a nice life. But after you've had that deeper immersion, you're gonna know. You're gonna have a much better sense of what you think you need and what you can deal with financially. And if you ask me questions at that moment, I'll have a better sense of it too. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for asking it. Let's see, Katie, no, she's asked the same question. So Katie Kelly's asking how much I charge for a session. You can find all of this information on my website, which is BlueSkyHypnosis.com. So I have a basic hourly rate, and then I've got different packages. I've got 3 packages, which are basically baskets of hours that are all discounted off the hourly rate. And again, I don't ask people to make any decisions on any of that until they've completed the first session. So you might just pay for the first session, and then if you want to do a package after that, you can roll that into the price of the package. If you don't want to do that, you've just paid for that one session, you've gotten the 90 minutes, and hopefully you've gained some benefits from it. But all that information is definitely on my website. And then, Doreen, what is she saying here? Schools should teach little children how important they are and that they are loved, not to look outside for validation. The only approval that is needed is the approval of yourself, period. Yes, love it. That's going to get an applause. I could not agree with you more, Doreen. And I would actually say that instead of schools, and I'm not arguing with this, I'm just wanting to make a point, that maybe little children, like real little children, should be teaching the adults that lesson. Because I say little children, especially babies, already know that they're magnificent. That's why they have these radiant smiles on their faces, right? Because they already know they're magnificent. There's a lot we can learn from babies and also from animals. Just look in the eyes of your dog. Look in the eyes of your cat. You'll see just pure love in there. That is who you are too. And you're right, Doreen, our job is to find our way back to all of this. And stop thinking that the only way I'm gonna feel that really good feeling is by losing 20 pounds. That's not true. And I'm not saying it's not a good idea to lose 20 pounds. If you're overweight, it's a really good idea. But we want you to feel good now, right? With your body exactly as it is today. And use those really good feelings to help you achieve your goals. If you're not feeling like crap, you're not gonna need comfort food. You're not gonna be dumping adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't like what you see. You're exactly right. We need to look at each other, look at ourselves, and just see and feel the love and the magnificence that already exists inside. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I wrote in the description, and I want to get to this before the broadcast ends for today. I wrote, regressing to a past life where you were healthy and thin. So I want to talk about that briefly. One of the techniques for utilizing past life regression, especially as it relates to weight gain and weight loss, is we can take you into a past lifetime where you were totally healthy, where you felt really good about yourself, where you felt really good about your weight. And then we can have you, your present life self, be first person. In other words, get in that past life body and feel what it's like to be in that body. What it's like when you move, what it's like when you do work, with a shovel or picking up a bale of hay, what it's like when you walk into a room. What your relationship is like, what your emotional relationship is like when you see food, what it feels like when you see another person who's thin, healthy, what it looks like when you see a person who's overweight. And take all of those feelings and essentially anchor them inside of who you are today. So you always have that visceral first-person experience to draw upon of what that's like. Moreover, not just can we regress you into a past lifetime where you were in a healthy body with a good relationship with food. Not only can we call upon your past life self to give you advice like an advisor or a good friend about your current life, but we can project you forward into the future to when you have solved this problem. When your body is healthy and strong. When you can do things maybe that you can't do now. What your relationship to food is like in the future, when it's a healthy relationship. Also get advice and wisdom from your future self and put you in that body. So this is, another way that we can use the concept of regression or progression around past lives, future lives, and weight loss, weight gain to your advantage. Because what we really want is we want your subconscious mind to be totally on board, to say, yep, I realize that threat is over. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can stand down. I can put my rifle down. I can take off my helmet. And we want your subconscious mind to feel, to see, to smell, to hear, to taste even exactly what being totally healthy is like, and to feel really good about that, so that it can feel good about working towards that goal. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I'm going to take maybe one more question, and then we'll wrap it up for today. But before we wrap it up, and before I take the question, I just want to talk briefly and make a little pitch about next Friday. I'm going to be doing the Live at 5 based upon relieving stress and anxiety. Now, clearly, this is an epidemic problem in our country. It is absolutely massive. And this last 3 or 4 months, with the lockdowns and everything else, it's only accelerated these problems that were already at epidemic proportions. And there is clearly a linkage between stress and anxiety and weight gain. So next Friday, we're going to talk about stress and anxiety, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, how it, sort of debilitates people's lives. But most importantly, we're going to talk about what we need to do to begin relieving these experiences for people. What are the different ways that we can begin moving in the opposite direction? In other words, going from the sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight response, because that's really what we're talking about, to the parasympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, which is rest and digest. What tools are available? What do you need to do to get there? What do you need to do to stop having panic attacks? And how can you be firing on all cylinders so that you can begin to change your life? Because everything's tied up into this. Like not being able to sleep is tied up into this. Weight gain and weight loss, as I said before, is tied up into this for many different reasons. Relationship issues are tied up into this. So we're going to talk about this one next Friday, and I hope you guys will be back to join me for that next Friday live at 5. And I'm going to take one more question here. Let's see if we've got one even. Let's see here. Okay, so here's a good one. Oh, wait a minute. Hi, Dollar Honey. That happened to me. First and second panic attacks during very intense exercise. Thought I was having a heart attack. Thankfully not, though. Okay, so the first thing you would obviously want to do if this occurred is you would want to make sure that you had this all checked out with your doctor and that you don't have some underlying condition that could be resolved medically, something with your cardiovascular system or medications you're on or whatever else. You want to rule all that out first and foremost. Once that's been ruled out, now we could start to look at the psychological aspects of this. Is your subconscious mind just saying, hey, exercising is dangerous, when really it's not, because something happened in the past where you were exercising and something catastrophic occurred? If that's the case, we would want to put that to rest. And I guess we will. Gia girl, do you think you'll do a live stream hypnosis? Yes, I do. I think I will do that. One of the reasons I haven't done it up until this point is I've wanted to just kind of get my arms around just doing these every Friday, doing the live at 5s, especially with the technology and everything. So that I'm feeling pretty good about. And then I think the next step I will take towards doing a live hypnosis on a stream is actually interviewing someone, like, you know, either having somebody that I've worked with in the past who agrees to be interviewed here with me in my office, or interviewing them over Zoom and having them talk about, you know, what the experience of doing hypnosis was like for them, what worked, what didn't work, how it's affected their lives, did they run into any roadblocks, that kind of thing. And then once I have that, once I have the ability to have another person technologically on screen with me, then I think I would do you know, a live hypnosis thing with somebody who's you know, up for that and agrees to do it. Because I certainly do that anyway. I mean, you know, today I had a couple of clients and I'm working remotely with them. It's just more of the technology piece, wanting to make sure that I've got that. And so I think the first part, as I'm thinking about it, will be kind of interviewing somebody, because if I can interview them, then I can hypnotize them, and then we can go through the session and everybody can kind of witness all of this. And I'll just have to think through how I would want to do that, because I don't know that we want to do just a whole live hypnosis session. You know, we might want to do a shorter one and then leave time for people to ask questions where the person, the subject, can respond to it, I can respond to it. It's also possible that I could do something that's recorded, you know, record something live, a hypnosis session, and then edit it just for specific parts, and then play those parts as part of a live stream. So these are all just sort of occurring to me now, but that's something that I definitely have plans to do in the future. And if anybody is interested in being a subject in this, especially if I've worked with you before, please feel free to send me an email, peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. And having said that, please also consider subscribing to my email newsletter. So you can find that in that little description at BlueSkyHypnosis.com if you want to join my email newsletter, because there are things in the email newsletter that are not always on my YouTube channel. So thank you very much for those of you who participated today, for those of you who watched, those of you who asked questions, those of you who shared important parts of your life with all of us. It really adds so much, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. And hope to see you here next Friday for the Stress and Anxiety Relief Live at 5. Take care and have a great weekend. Bye.